All right, now live. Mic check. Ha ha ha. All right, lights are lighting and the things are thinging. Looking good here, there. Good. All right, welcome to Fish Talk Daily, everyone, where I make a very weak attempt at posting something every day, fisheries or fish related. Actually, I've been recycling these old lives for a while, but I'm going to run out of those pretty quick. So hopefully, I'll be able to go every day. But the main thing that's been holding me back is a strange health problem. Frank, what's going on, my friend? I was just talking about my strange health problem. Let's lead with that and throw something in the chat we can talk about because I have absolutely nothing planned to discuss after this. I try to go live every day. I'm going to cut it back to probably weekdays, Monday to Friday. It's just difficult, or at least 5 days a week anyway. You know how life is. But the weird health issue that I have going is called alpha gal syndrome, and I had another flare up because I had lunch. I went to a restaurant. I won't name it. It wasn't their fault. Soup and salad. Keep it basic. Just trying not to have allergic reactions. And apparently the soup probably had some beef broth because I had a terrible reaction. But fortunately for me, I had a meeting or appointment with probably the world's worst allergist. But I got to go into the doctor having a full blown attack that I've had many times, and nobody could seem to figure out what was happening. I had all the blood work and all the stuff, so they couldn't make any excuses with me that I had made any of this up. And they gave me a emergency packet of every basically allergy drug available, and that really helped me out, and it got me over that problem in a much faster. Usually a flare like that would last a couple weeks, could keep me really down for a while. So what is it and what does it do? What happens is when you're a field biologist like me and you spend your life outside, you get bit by a lot of ticks. And those ticks can bring you diseases like Lyme disease, or in my case, alpha gal disease, or syndrome, I guess. I think it's a disease, unless the syndrome is a disease. I don't know. I'm not a medical guy. So you get bit by a tick and then you get allergic to red meat. But actually, you're allergic to, I think it's called the alpha gal protein, which is in a lot. It's strong in red meat, but it's like you're allergic to everything mammal. Anything with hair, you can't have anymore. So no more cheese, no more milk, no more ice cream, no more red meat, no more pork, no more lamb, no more bison, no more venison. And then it gets real tricky because like gel caps for medicine, those have that protein in it. Gelatin, like Jello and anything gelatin candy or anything like that, has that protein in there. A lot of pills, multivitamins. You have to be very careful about the additives that they have. And I think in looking back on it, I've had it for quite a long time. I'm positive for at least 5 years, but I'm even going back even further. It could have been as long as 15, maybe even a little longer than that, because I had strange health problems in my mid 30s, heart palpitations, anxiety attacks, and nobody could really give me a clue as to what was going on then either. And I think they were allergic reactions. So I think I've been dealing with this for quite a long time. And when you've lived 5, 10, 15 years in just almost a consistent allergic reaction, a mild allergic reaction, I wasn't, now I did have some, I think it's called anaphylaxis. I think it's how it's pronounced, where you have breathing difficulties. And I've been to the emergency room several times, 3 or 4, where I felt like I couldn't breathe right. And I go get every test in the book and run up a big bill, and nothing. You're healthy. We don't see anything wrong. Go ahead and go on home, because and they were way wrong. I got um, shafted several times, got quite a bit of debt from that kind of nonsense. And the breathing difficulties came later on, after I had been allergic for however long. So now I've just been playing it real safe and just eating one thing. I started fasting a couple years ago, and that's when I noticed I started feeling a little bit better. And then that's when I really started keying into things that I was eating. It seemed like sometimes I would come off the fast and just eat a little salad or whatever and be okay for a day or two. And then other times, like if I had like a steak or something, uh, I'd get feeling real bad again. And that's how I figured out, okay, every time I eat red meat, I feel really bad. And as soon as I typed that into AI, into the chat GPT, it instantly hit it. It was like, oh, you need to get checked for alpha gal. And it was right. And it was right more than any doctor I've seen, any emergency room I've seen. And it's really been helping me too with, like the other day, I came off a fast. I was maybe 16, 17 hours. And I was like, okay, because the problem is now I have like histamine issues, where anything high in histamine, like beer, I can't have beer anymore, even though there's no like animal protein in there. It is a high histamine food. It's a histamine trigger. So you have to watch things that trigger histamine. Vinegar will trigger histamines. Certain vegetables and fruits will trigger it, like tomatoes is a histamine trigger. Maybe not so much for me, but again, I've been battling it for so long. I'm just trying to have if I could have a week of not having an allergic reaction, a mild or severe allergic reaction, that would be a win. So I had a banana, and come to find out, like I've always had like a little like I think it's just ragweed allergy. I used to get sick every fall as a kid when the ragweed pollen came out. That was never diagnosed by anyone. That's just me thinking back. Back then, they didn't do allergies much, but I got sick every fall until I got older and kind of got over it and moved away from that area too. Come to think of it, but I think having just so many allergic reactions and living in a constant state of allergies is maybe super sensitive to just anything. And it turns out like bananas and like ragweed and apples and all these little proteins and stuff in there kind of are close, kind of hunting over the same field, for lack of a better term. And I've just really got to watch what I eat. So I'm going to try to be the poster boy for alpha gal. I think, all sportsmen should get checked for it. Just insist that your doctor run you on it, especially if you're having any kind of, meat reactions. Every time you eat red meat, you start feeling bad. Also, to pay attention to like your sugars. If you have, I noticed like a red meat and a dessert would be really bad. I think sugar can kind of aid it. It doesn't really cause it, because I found some candies like I can have a Jolly Rancher. It doesn't cause me any problems. It's plenty of sugar. Smarties don't cause any problems. Skittles don't cause any problems. And those are all high in a lot of sugar. So the sugar alone doesn't trigger it. But if you trigger it and then add sugar, it's cooking with gas then. So again, I think I'm just going to kind of harp on this a little bit. I've been through the ringer with it, and if I can help some other people kind of figure out what's going on with their health, and help be a warning for other sportsmen and biologists and outdoors people to be a little more proactive in their tick protection. Believe me, you don't want any of this, man. it is a challenge. I have a long laundry. The list of things that I'm allergic to right now is much longer than the things that I can eat. So then the good news is though, like there's cheeses, there's the vegan type stuff. It's a little pricey, but there are things in there that I can substitute. I can have eggs. I'm living off omelets in the morning. With the kind of I'll call it fake cheese, but whatever it is, it doesn't have dairy. It doesn't have, it doesn't have any animal products in it, but at the same time, it's really not that bad. That kind of stuff's come a long way. So for the time being, I'm an involuntary vegan. I can't have chicken and I can't have turkey, and I've been having a lot of chicken. So that's the alpha update, and I'll promise to keep you guys posted on that. Let me go through my comment section here. 2 folks in here right now, so not too much. Yeah, man, I hear you, Frank. He says I need to start. Yeah. The other candy that actually is good, there's a plant-based Reese's cup, and if you were to put next to one another, it's not the same thing. But I would say that it's pretty close, especially when you've had no candy and thought, you're not going to have any candy ever again. It's not bad. You can make it work. It's nice to have that dopamine hit, because I'd say out of the hardest thing to stop cold turkey is sugar. Man, it is I've always had kind of a sweet tooth anyway. So yeah, quitting cold turkey is tough. And then making yourself sick, kind of just, testing food. And then it's kind of a trial by fire, you eat something and you feel bad and you're like, okay, can't eat that anymore. Like strawberries, like banana. I can't eat that stuff anymore. Apples. I took a bite of an apple, started sneezing immediately. And what's interesting too, like since I've been able to get back to like a baseline where I'm not constantly allergic, I feel so much better. Like I've been feeling a lot worse than I kind of realized, because I've been feeling bad for so long. That's why I haven't been doing much fishing videos. Honestly, on my days off and the time I sleep, and I really can't handle the heat very well either. It gives me hives to get too hot. So I can't go outside very long. And I don't know. I'm hoping that will, smooth out. And once I get a little bit better. Anyway, one thing we can talk about too, G-Crack. I got some of these. And they're real small. They're just the 2s. Where's my camera? There it is. The G-Crack guys are awesome. They've been a supporter of the page now for a long time, 4 or 5 years, sending me baits and stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I saw that bait on Instagram. Somebody was bashing it, giving it a hard time. And I thought, I don't know, that looks pretty interesting. That's either going to work good or not at all. And I was thinking along the lines of lateral line. The place that I was fishing, especially, had a lot of stained water. It was really stained most of the time. After any rain, it stayed muddy. It's sediment loading, especially in Georgia. You'll have that clay, that orangey kind of brown color to the water, and it would stay like that for a long time. So, as we've discussed prior, in the stained waters where the bass aren't seeing as well, what I kind of termed a vibration signature, how the bait moves in the water, how it displaces the water becomes important. You'll see rattle traps or, baits a wide displacement wobble, crankbaits, spinner baits, the blade, the vibration in there. All those baits seem to work a little bit better in muddy water. So I thought the same thing about the bellows gill. I thought that if that displaces the water in a unique way, that might trigger a nice strike, and it did. And I had some success in that stained water with the big one. But the small one, I think, it's important to have in your toolbox as well, because bass will get keyed in certain times of the year, like the threadfin shad. There's threadfin shad in that lake, and sometimes a bulk of what they're chewing, is they're going to eat what's readily available. So if they're not on big forage, they're on that real small stuff, on that reproduction, that young of the year reproduction, you need to match that hatch. And that's what I like about G-Craft. Those guys are smart that way. They've got the 2, the 2.8, the 3.5. I don't know if you guys see, I've been putting it in my stories. I just got like an 18-inch plastic worm out now. It's this big, long thing. I saw it about a year ago. I've been waiting for it to come out. I'm about to order one. Hopefully I can get back in the boat here pretty soon and not, it's cooling off. It was only 85 today. It wasn't nearly as bad outside. I had to work, but I had a much better day when it's not hotter than the third level of hell out there. It's been bad in Florida this year. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the boat, getting back on the water, doing some fishing. And maybe I don't know what they're going to do with the lake back there. They've been threatening a winter drawdown for weed control for several years now, and it kind of head faked me every time. So if they take a 10,000 acre lake down to the river channel, they concentrate the fish in that river. There's still a dam, so they don't go. I guess they can go up the Ocklawaha. They're not going to too much go down it, and the fishing gets just ridiculous, for lack of a better term, shooting fish in a barrel. And when they do that, the winter drawdown is an old fisheries management technique. Actually, it benefits the lake in many ways. One way is it exposes the bottom of the lake to the atmosphere, to the oxygen, much higher oxygen concentration. So any like pine straw, or in this lake's case, rotting vegetation like water hyacinth and water lettuce, it grows like crazy out there. That thick bottom layer of muck will rot away much quicker. And by getting rid of rotting material, you are getting rid of, I don't know how to put it. Okay, rotting material consumes oxygen. So I wouldn't say you're increasing the oxygen, but you're decreasing the chances of having an oxygen problem when you decrease the amount of rotting material in the bottom of the lake, especially when you've got like thousands of acres of water lettuce that die off and fall to the bottom and just create a big problem. And then the other thing that it does is when you expose the pond bottom in the cold weather, you want to get it to freeze. And the idea is for the winter drawdown is to get the soil to freeze if you can. Now that doesn't usually happen here, but just north of me in Georgia, that's real easy to do. You just expose it in the winter and it'll freeze the bottom, and the freezing will crack all of the aquatic weed seeds that have been thrown off the whole summer, and they won't be able to grow anymore. So you're kind of killing the seeds too. And that's something that people rarely think about, because aquatic plants will throw off seeds big time. So a good example of how that works is, say you got a homeowners association pond. Generally, this is the pattern. The pond is stocked, it's good, it's fishing good, it's looking good, and everybody thinks that for some reason, and I'm not sure why this is, the misinformation kind of goes this way, But for some reason, people think that man-made ponds are naturally balanced, naturally sustaining systems. You heard what I said, though, right? A man-made pond. So that would be like a comparable comparison would be like your man-made yard is a naturally balanced system that you don't have to maintain. That doesn't make any sense, right? How many landscapers are there in the world? you know, your man-made pond is the same thing, and that's essentially what I did was maintain those ponds. But like I said, that was a big misconception that most people had, that the pond was a self-managing system and the fish population was a self-balancing issues and all that. You just let Mother Nature handle it, and that is not how that works. So usually the HOAs would not have any kind of contract, not pay any attention to the pond. Most people didn't fish anyway. And they get weeds. You can get weeds from lots of different ways. You can have Karen plant some water lily in there and create about a $10,000 to $12,000 problem on a small 4 to 10 acre pond. Made that money several times. So introduction by people who don't know what they're doing. That's one problem. Introduction by geese or waterfowl, really of any kind, because ducks and geese like to eat weeds, and then the droppings get into the water, which the seeds are in the droppings. Get your plants that way. And then any other animals, beavers, turtles, you name it. You've got a pond down the hill with some plants in it. It's not going to take very long for something to come crawling up in there. Muskrats, otters. There's a long list. Anything, that gets a little bit on its fur and crawls into your pond is going to introduce. And you'll get it that way as well. So generally the plants start and nobody calls from the HOA like, oh, wow, look, we've got a little bit of a plant problem. Let's call the expert and get this taken care of today. No, nobody ever does that. Generally, what happens is the pond gets totally covered in weeds, and sometimes they cause a fish kill because plants use oxygen at night. Another thing that most people seem to not understand, but too many weeds can suck all the oxygen out of the water at night and kill your fish too. So you need to control them, especially in shallow ponds where it can grow over the whole pond. Anyway, over the couple of years it takes, usually a couple summers, those weeds build up, and those weeds also throw off seeds. And if you saw how many seeds it's ridiculous. It's billions, and so your whole pond bottom is covered in seeds. And now here's the thing. Say you want to do a treatment. A treatment is something that's quick. A treatment's like a lawnmower. Most pond treatments are not systemic treatments, meaning they don't kill the root system, right? So if you're in a situation where I have to treat your pond for plants, I've got you in a profitable situation to my advantage, because I can't put anything on there. Very few, the products that are systemic, you aren't going to want to pay for. You're going to pay me for the other stuff. And so that means I got you in a loop. Just like mowing the grass. I'm just using a herbicide to do it, or an algicide to do it. It's not going to eradicate your problem. It's going to make it look good. It's going to make it look good quick. I can clean them up pretty quick, most problems, but it's also a repeat cycle, right? You might as well sign a contract with me. You wouldn't want to pay, full retail price every single treatment. You're going to have to get on a rotation, and for lack of a better term, I got you. You're going to be paying me forever. And there's a lot of treatment pond and lake treatment companies that operate just like that. They don't offer grass carp. They don't stock fish. They don't do fish management. They don't do anything but do treatments. Nozzle heads, gun it down. So back to the winter drawdown. I said all that to say this. if you pulled those ponds down and let the bottom, let the seeds get killed by the cold, that's a systemic. You've killed it at the source, and you can do, just by draining the water down, a better weed control program than what I'd be offering with herbicides and algicides. And you won't hear nozzle heads telling you that, because that's how they earn. It would be counterproductive. I will tell you that because I'm not spraying ponds anymore. And actually, I told everybody the truth when I did my business. I didn't pull any punches with anyone. I just shot people straight and said, this is how it works and this is what it is. And I told them the exact same. This is not the first time I've gone through that little spiel about herbicides and algicides. I wanted people to be very clear as to what they were signing up for. And one of the things that I did do is stock grass carp. In Georgia, it was legal. In the Southeast, many states, it's legal to stock triploid grass carp. And that's a sterilized grass carp, vegetarian fish that you can add. They don't solve all your weed control problems, but they solve a good many of them. Anything submerged and soft growing off the bottom, they'll take care of. They're not going to be good on cattails. They're not going to be good on things that float like duckweed. Anything kind of stemmy, hard stemmy, not so much. You have to kind of stack them in a little bit thicker. Think about like cows on a pasture. The more cows you put, the faster they'll eat the pasture. Same thing with the grass carp. So I would use them in combination, where I get the grass carp to deal with the stuff growing off the bottom. And then basically I'm dealing with algae. They don't like algae, so you have to treat it too. That filaments is that green slime stuff. They don't really like eating that. They don't control that very well. And so that would leave me just to choose the algae treatments. And like I said, water lily, cattail, stuff like that, they're really not very good at controlling either. So they're not an end all be all solution to all your weed problems, but they are a good way to reduce the amount of pesticides that we put into the environment. So I always recommended them for that reason. Frank says you got one too long, but let's do this one. All right. Does filamentous algae that grows on pond bottoms always choke out other vegetation, or do conditions need to be conducive to algae outcompeting higher plants? Actually, Frank, what you see usually, because algae is a non-rooted deal, right? It can live floating or it can live on the bottom. So you'll see a pattern with it a lot of times. The algae will, on sunny days, it'll float. It'll produce oxygen like any plant, and it's such that slimy junk that the oxygen bubbles will get trapped in it on those days, and that'll cause it to float up. And when that process reverses at night, that'll cause it to sink back down. So it depends on what time of day and how much sun and what time of year too. But as to where that algae is, because it just has to be wet. You can literally drain the lake, but if you have a stream coming in keeping the algae wet, it'll stay alive in wet mud. It's not rooted. It just needs water and some nutrients. But nutrients around ponds is generally not a problem to find, depending on where you are. But yeah, so algae, you can usually just count on algae treatments. If you don't have algae treatments, that's kind of rare, at least in the springtime. A lot of times the water will heat up and you'll see filamentous fall out in the heat of the summer. It doesn't really like the real hot. So sometimes it's like a spring and a fall, at least in Georgia anyway, where I did most of my work, or in the Southeast, I guess, where I did most of my work. You'll see algae problems in the springtime. You'll have some treatments then. And Oh, side note, if you need to do treatments, I can consult with you on here or really anywhere. Drop me a DM anywhere. I can help you with that. Um, the original idea of when I got going with all this was to help people with those kinds of, pond owners with those kinds of problems. But I just don't have that many pond owners. I guess I don't know if they're not on social media or they're not wanting to, or they want to stay over in the Facebook groups and listen to people who don't know what they're talking about. Maybe that's what it is. But I have helped quite a few people on the Instagram page, but just not as many people. Like when you look at, there's 1 million ponds in Georgia alone. The state built them for erosion control back in the 50s and 60s. I would think with that many ponds just in Georgia, that there would be more than just a couple of guys asking questions, but there's just not. So if you know somebody with a pond or whatever, have them subscribe. I'll be glad to help them out. The whole idea there is to have somebody with some experience who can walk you through it, save you some money. And the water is all of our water. It's not your water. The water goes out the back of the dam and down the river, and it's to everybody. So that's the biggest problem that I have with the pond treatment process in this country. The Georgia EPD would come to my house and make sure that, I had stored my chemicals properly. They look over, they scrutinize my paperwork and make sure that I wrote everything down properly. And I have no problem with that. They should do that. The problem I have with that, though, is you can go down to Tractor Supply. You can go down to any farm supply store. You can go on Amazon. You can go anywhere and buy the exact same stuff that I was doing with absolutely no clue as to what you're doing, right? Just and dump as much as you want, which is usually what people do. More is better. Believe me, pesticides are not like money. More is not better. I've seen more fish kills due to like bluestone, copper sulfate than I can count because people don't realize it's toxic. Well, it's illegal to use. Yeah, it's also highly toxic to fish, and you need to know exactly what you're doing or you'll kill all your fish. And again, that falls back onto water quality issues. Like in the Midwest, when we've talked prior, where you got higher alkalinity and total hardness and things like that, you can get away with a little more bluestone in the water, not kill fish. In Georgia, no. You can show it a bag of copper sulfate and kill them. Doesn't take much at all. 0.3 parts per million is toxic to bluegill in Georgia. So less than a half a part per million. So think about that. Think about 1 million marbles, blue ones. And out of that, and I don't even know how big that would be, but you know what I mean? If you had like probably Olympic size pool full of blue marbles and one of them is red, that is 3 times as high of the rate for copper to kill fish in Georgia, right? It is not much. So you better know what you're doing. And people don't. And kind of a pet peeve of mine. Steve, what's going on? I appreciate that, man. I appreciate those kind words. I really do. Let's see. I'm going to, from what you've heard, Solomon, I don't even know how that pronounced, allergy treatment, acupuncture. Okay, I've heard that is an effective treatment. I heard that. You're about the 4th person who said that. And as it turns out, I've got, my neighbor has a sister-in-law who I think she's got 3 or 4 PhDs in like pharmacy and medicine. She's a doctor, but she's actually an Asian lady and she practices Eastern medicine and she practices acupuncture. So I am going to go see her. Definitely going to give it a try. Fingers crossed I get something out of it, but I'm also just going to assume that it's not going to work and I'll be allergic to red meat forever and all that stuff forever. But honestly, man, it's such a relief to finally know because it's been progressively getting worse on me, especially since probably like 3 years now since I moved to Florida. Maybe the moving to Florida and being exposed to new like pollens and things too. I think, because I really felt cruddy when I got here, and I don't know, but it's really just a relief to know what I'm dealing with, and now I have like a plan of attack, and it's nothing fatal, at least unless I don't eat something that could kill me. I guess give me shock and kill me, but um, and also too, like the things the possible diagnoses of other things like MS or Parkinson's or things of that nature, I'm clear of, and that's a huge load off that I know I'm not dealing with something terrible as that. So in a way, I'm really relieved, and I just gotta have some dietary changes. And the one thing I can say is I've lost a ton of weight from the fasting, and now that I know what to eat, um, I'm it's looking promising. I'm looking. Things are looking up for me, not down. So what if I don't have to eat? I can't eat red meat. Oh well, it's not fatal, so it's good. But I appreciate those kind words, man. I do, and I'll keep you guys posted. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of become the poster boy for it. I'm just going to harp on it. I tell everybody everywhere I go all the time. If anybody who will listen, I'm letting them know, because absolutely nobody should have to spend the kind of money that I spent and get no results from the doctors. And these doctors should be all right. I know a little bit about statistics, right? Because we use statistics in fisheries. You don't count all the fish in the lake. You got to use statistics. So the post that I ran up on Instagram say it's approaching. It's one of the most popular ones I've ever put out, and I'm real proud of that because it's spreading awareness to everyone. And almost 30,000 people in just a few days have seen that post, and that I'm super proud about that one for for a lot of different reasons. And I'm just going to keep harping on it, and I'm just going to be open about it and let everybody know what's working for me, because maybe that'll help them. And ultimately, I think that's what social media should be used for, right? You should be, helping people with it and trying to inform people. So of whatever, like, ponds and pond management and chemical treatments, and now this, something I got to deal with, but I don't know. Let's put a positive spin on it and help people out with it. I'm gonna scroll back real quick, make sure I didn't miss somebody. Hey, Mike, welcome in, man. It's a little bit light on the viewership tonight, but I'd imagine most people are watching college football. Yeah, Frank. Frank is saying it's a relief to when you've been feeling sick for a long time. Yeah, dude, that was. I'm really trying not to badmouth doctors, but I really got nothing good to say about them. I will say this: if I failed on their pond as badly as they failed my health, I wouldn't charge them. And I've never failed anybody the way they failed me on a pond. Never, not once. In 30 years of messing with ponds, I've never had swings and misses, and certainly I got paid very handsomely by similar individuals. I might add, healthcare professionals were a big part of my clientele, because they're the only people rich enough to afford a private pond biologist or own a private lake. So I think the next consulting job that I do, those prices are going to reflect that. Steve's writing in. He says he's bitten by a tick 7 years ago, tested negative. Good for good, yeah. Man, bats can be dangerous too, man. You can get rabid, you can get rabies. Yeah, you got all the rabies shots. Crazy, man. Rabies is nasty business for anybody who doesn't know. Actually, I've got a good friend, my friend Lee. He's the health inspector, and he went to college to you got to, you need a master's degree in everything these days to get a job anywhere to work for the state, and then they pay you change. Um, but he was telling me all about that and how nasty rabies is. I didn't really understand. You don't want any of that business. Yeah, man, I agree. When you find out what you're dealing with, it's just a load off. You're not guessing anymore about. Again, your mind just when you're feeling so bad, your mind wanders, dude, and you're just into like, well, what is wrong with me? Um, and I don't have that anymore. Now I just know I'm having an allergic reaction to something, and actually, Chat GBT has been awesome because, well, for one, it helped me figure out what was going on. But it also is like I'm saying, hey, I ate an apple and now I'm sneezing. And it's like, well, apples have, a close to a ragweed, and you had a ragweed allergy. So, and your histamines are all jacked up right now from the last inflammation. So it's probably like for lack of a better term, like a cross contamination thing where that protein is close enough that it's tripping you up, and avoid that, avoid this. And it'll run you a list, and it keeps running total of everything. You just got to tell it, hey, I'm having this problem, and the AI remembers it. So it's been a great tool. It's been a great tool for the page and writing and doing this stuff, and it's been a great tool health wise. So I have no problems with chat. I also would say don't like go and give 3 symptoms of an illness into chat and think that it's going to give you a diagnosis, because believe me, the Chat GPT was as far and wide as for things. Again, the list of problems that I had were so all over the place, that it was too. It's going thyroid, it's going over here and over there. But honestly, it wasn't any more wide ranging than what the doctors were doing to me either. They didn't know, and it didn't know. But it was the red meat correlation. I just noticed it, and it was like, every time I eat red meat, I'm getting really bad highs now. And chat just picked that right up. It's like, ooh, and it nailed it too. Yeah, Steve, you're right. I agree. He's saying tick-related illnesses are under researched and overlooked by doctors. I can attest to that, definitely. And yeah, so again, if I can spread awareness and help people become proactive with their tick protection, and if they are feeling sick, maybe some people can go get treatments and get some relief like I got, and know that they're not suffering from some debilitating disease that's about to come crippling their life, and that all you got to do is just eat chicken and turkey and vegetables and chill out with what makes you feel bad. You'll be okay. Yeah, that's I was thinking Frank saying we'll go put some crappy in their ponds to screw them up. I was thinking more like rotenone. Let's just go for the guillotine, so they just dead panic. Nothing as subtle as crappy. Let's just smoke them. Yeah, actually, I've had some ponds swing back around from bullheads, Steve. A bullhead catfish isn't quite the kiss of death that a crappie is, for your relative weight and stuff. I've been able to manage some pretty decent bass fisheries in the presence of bullheads. Um, they can be a challenge, especially like they're hard to eradicate, and they can live through the treatment a little bit better than a lot of fish. And then you'll end up with a bunch of baby bullheads when you didn't really want them. I've had that happen to me maybe 2 or 3 times over the years. Some of the times the pond can't get drained down enough, and you'll have too much water depth, and fish can escape the rotenone treatments. Like when you see a fish kill, it's very rarely killed every fish in the lake. Actually, I had an idea about that. We could touch on that too. I was thinking about it in the terms of like spotted bass, but bullheads is another one. And really, let's just say any fish population. Okay. Let's say I go to the pond and I stocked it new, but I have a stream coming in. So I know I'm going to get competing fish species coming down the stream, because there's no way to eradicate the entire stream of the fish populations, right? But well, let's keep it in the context of the spotted bass. So say we know that we've got spots in there, right? Somebody threw some in. We watched them throw some spotted bass in there. And we know he's an idiot who's a tournament bass fisherman who's going to every lake in the Southeast and bringing spotted bass and putting them into your, say, 100-acre lake. You're not going to see those spots, right? Even though you watch the guy put them in there, you'll never see them. It's just a few spotted bass. You're not going to go out there and catch them. You're not going to go out there and see them. They're not going to be in the present. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to go out there with an electrofishing boat and find them, right? By the time you start catching fish, by the time you're catching a few spots, that place is cooked, right? It's done. And I've watched it so many times with so many different competing species. Crappie is another perfect example. I've gone years, 2-3 years, doing electrofishing surveys, annual electrofishing surveys, and looking at the data going, this is not right. This is off. This is not, something's fishy with these numbers. And then put the boat in early in the spring, and the crappie had a late spawn because I'm usually waiting a little bit. I'm usually after the crappie spawn when I'm doing electrofishing, but then boom, you're lighting them up. There's crappie everywhere. And like I said, when the fish are introduced, you don't see them, and they can be there pretty solid fish population of them, and you don't see them. Not hooking them, not shocking them. You don't see them. By the time you're catching them, that's an established population that you ain't getting rid of ever. It's going to fall back on all these studies. Like, I don't know if you saw the study I posted on Instagram where they were trying to electrofish the smallmouth out of some northern lake up there. They're doing a 20-year research study about it. Yeah. By the time they just, by eradicating the smallmouth, they reduced the numbers of smallmouth, which made the remaining smallmouth healthier, which put bigger spawns in, which increased the smallmouth population. That's normally what you see. And they didn't need to do a 20-year study on it for me to know that. I've seen that enough times, but so you could never see a bullhead and then boom, all of a sudden they're everywhere. That's pretty normal. Just patterns in the data, Good point, Frank. John Connor. Yeah, see, that's where I'm going, Frank. I can still have the fish. I can still have the chicken. I can still have the turkey. Still hunt some turkeys. Maybe I'll be a take up turkey hunting, But gotta watch the butter though. Gotta watch the cream. Gotta watch just the mammal products all the way around. It can be tough. All right. I'm getting text all over the place. Why do people call you when you're trying to go live, man? Well, anyway, boys, we're at 48 minutes, and that wasn't much of a fish talk, but that's okay. I just want everybody to be aware of what's going on. Be safe out there. Let's cut it off a little early. I usually go an hour, but I've been flirting with the times, shortening them up, seeing and everything. Oh, and another thing I did too, since there's only 3 of you here, but maybe some other people come along a little later. They're probably watching football. There's a promotion thing. If you have to bring up your YouTube page on the computer. And this is my laptop, I've got a tablet, so I usually work off of, but this is a lap. So if you bring studio.youtube.com when you're backslashing your name, we'll bring up your data and stuff. And then in there's promotions, and I just put like $100, up there and promoted Which one did I promote? Oh, the one I did with Mike about the swim bait review. And man, that thing it's been hit. I guess they stick it in other places. You're paying Google to place that ad for you. But I have to say, man, I've gotten quite a good number of hits on the watches and I think I've gone up like, what was it, like 16 people, 16 followers in just a day. That's pretty rare for YouTube, unless one of your things goes viral. If you can get the short videos to go viral, that's a good place to get a lot of followers. The short videos, a lot of people watch those. But if you're trying to do your thing on social media, you can throw Google $100 and it works pretty good so far. That will end on September 13th, so that'll be something else that we can track along with tick-borne illness and pond management. Anyway, there's no more questions on here, so I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to watch some football. And I'll try to be back tomorrow night. Oh, and on the 3rd, we got Steve coming through, Steve Barden. Looking forward. Yeah, you're right about that. Mike is a draw. He's a good dude and a great fisherman and a wealth of information. So anything you can do to support Mike, please do. He's bullshad. He's given me discounts up there, and he's helped share and been a great asset and a great friend and a great asset to the page. So I always want to shout out bullshad. Good dude. Sure, Steve. I'm glad you came in, man. Ottawa River. Well, good luck. Let me know how it goes. I'm going to try to come live again to, let's see, Sunday, Monday. No, let's just go ahead. I'm going to skip Monday. I'm going to take one day off, and then we'll have Steve in first, second. Oh, maybe it's Wednesday. I think it'll be Wednesday night on the 3rd. And see what he's got going on. Yeah, good luck. Good luck with your fishing, boys, and tight lines. I'll catch you next time. Appreciate you.